do you think that does for integrated dance, these meetings in different venues, different fora?
I think the most important thing is how we engage, how people engage within this work, because sometimes there's a lot of stigma that comes along with when you're working with people living with disability or a deaf person or a blind person. So the fact that there's all these different festivals happening, all these new connections, we're building new audiences, we're building a new awareness, but it's not new, it's just an awareness, because sometimes we forget that we are a whole people, and there's a diverse people living in every community, and we forget about those people living with disabilities or a deaf person, or they always being placed in the background, or they are always brought in the last minute. But being connected like this and actually having peers and fellow artists doing exactly the same thing, and you actually can talk about your work, you can talk about the research, you can talk about things that are actually similar, and then you don't really feel so alone. This kind of work can really either include you or exclude you in everything that you do. So the festivals and the workshops and just talking amongst each other and actually have that fellowship to be able to speak about what you are doing, what your practice is, how does it embed into your people and your community. And then when you listen to somebody else, and then there's a similarity, but then there's also these little gems of things that you don't know. So because everything is not the same.
We live with something, so it's not just you coming and putting on a work, performing, but it's also coming and sharing with each other, and that exchange, yeah, and building more connections, which is, it's powerful and it's beautiful to see. Yeah, I agree with Nadine. Also the workshops, the communities. Often there's not enough time, so it's nice to have time to play and also to visit other provinces. And yeah, our government need to see the work. They need to see what we're doing and support. And we need to fight for that as well. I wish in the future that they can see what we're doing. Yeah.
The practice for all of us. I'd like to thank the amazing crew that have worked backstage with us.
Yeah.
So power and strength to you, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm learning.
Specifically, where so much of our population is living in really, really difficult situations, below the breadline. Access to transport, the timing of our shows, where the shows are happening are all things that then start to play against it. But another thing that I think of, and thank you, Teppan, for bringing this up, is that also a lot of, like we say, festivals are there to kind of preserve culture, and our culture as Africans is that we sang and danced at everything that we did.
From an African perspective, there were three things that really struck me, written by Colloquium2, who's a Nigerian, who talked about three things that African festivals particularly offer. And he said the first thing is that festivals are central to community life in Africa. It's part of our lives, and often blur the sacred and the secular. So many cultures have religious festivals where performance is at the heart of that work, and it blurs between what's going on at those festivals. that within the context of performance in Africa, unlike the mimetic theatre of the global north, we're not playing roles, we're not representing reality, we're playing with roles, we're playing with ideas. So there's a gap between, and that's something really struck me in the last session around film, is that actually there's representation and mimesis where it's the exact thing, and then art plays with it, it does something else. It starts asking us to abstract or think beyond the specific or the kind of obvious or the assumptions that are before us.
Dance is an embodied form, and particularly dance that goes on stage can challenge people's assumptions and maybe prejudices around what a disabled person can do. Can they be a dancer? And what is that embodied? So what happens when you put a perceived disabled person into a super able-bodied space in terms of challenging community perception? So can you tell us a little bit about how you think various communities think about disability in this area?
What a good question. I can definitely share my experiences in that. So we've been doing inclusive dance for the past 9 years, and one of my reasons why I got into it, because there was a lack of space for people with disability. When we started out in the beginning, a lot of people frowned upon it because they were like, what is he doing? Or what is he trying to do? People were, I think, unfamiliar with it. But we've really grown in the past 9 years and shown that disability is not an inability. It doesn't mean because a person is in a wheelchair or they don't necessarily have their sight or part of their mobility. Dance is about inclusivity. So if you can share dance in any way that can adapt to how you feel movement is, it can definitely work. Every festival or space has a different feel.
Yeah.
And that's I think that's just dependent on people's personalities and what they bring to the space. But I must say I thoroughly enjoy this festival. I really thoroughly enjoy this festival due to the excitement that everybody had when coming in, the energy, the whole idea of cohesion, of us coming together, and even though we all move differently and speak differently, but we all the same. So for me, it just shows that this is what the power of dance and the power of art can do, is bring people from different spaces together in a cohesive way to show that we are all the same, but we all just do it in different, sort of modes, and exactly, yes.
Yeah.
In different
Well,
spaces.
Jared, thank you so much for hosting us today, for sharing your work, power going forward. And hopefully this will soon be seen as something really worth investing in, both from a corporate and a government perspective.
Oh, definitely.
And let's all just keep speaking with each other.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yvette. Thank you for having me.
And I particularly want to thank Liang, who's been an incredible collaborator in this project. We have set out to collectively map innovations in integrated dance and praxis and explore new possibilities for collaborations.